as we call ourselves, which is the counter of the type. So that means that I look the least like a 4 of all of the 4s. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, which is how I was introduced to the Enneagram, was with the opportunity of using it with clients in therapy to help them better understand themselves, and especially in couples therapy, helping people understand their partners and what's making them click. And what made me get on the panel? Well, meeting Jerice and Kimberly in San Francisco, and any kind of workshop or Enneagram meeting that I've ever been involved in, the panels are the most informative and the most fun kind of meeting. So to be a part of it was sort of a no-brainer.
Beautiful. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Joe, welcome.
Thank you. Hi everyone. My name is Joe, and I am I'm a 4, and I've been told I'm a sexual 4, a 1-to-1 4, and I don't know that much about the Enneagram, and I was sort of mistyped for a while, and then when the 4 thing, you know, came into light, it was a complete, like, no-brainer. So I've never been on a panel. I don't, you know, this first time, and yeah, so that's it. Thanks.
Thank you for being here.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy, welcome.
Well, welcome to all of you. I too am a 4, as you know. I'm also a sexual 4, like Joe. And I think I wanted to do, and I am also, like Christy, a marriage and family therapist in Nevada. I wanted to do it because I've always learned each time I've been on a panel, and that's sort of what feeds me. So I'm glad to be here.
Thank you.
And that's it for me. Okay.
You can say more. There'll be plenty of opportunities, though.
Hi, gang. It's great to be here. I'm a social 4.
Does that mean you're really, really social? So for somebody that knows nothing about the Enneagram, does that mean you go out dancing and drink beer? What does that mean?
Social 4s are often first confused as 7s because we certainly are, or at least deign to be, gregarious and entertaining. But when you get to know a social 4, you get to sense that even his social interaction has a lot of hiddenness. In a weird kind of way, a social 4 sort of takes some perverse pleasure in the fact that a lot of people walk away thinking they know him really well and might even be close to him, but they're probably not. Because the energy a social 4 puts out in the world it's sincere. I mean, I like to have fun in groups, but it's also another way to stay hidden. And we'll probably talk more about this need to stay hidden in the panel tonight. To answer your other question, I undertook spiritual direction in the early 90s with a Jesuit, no less, who is the first person who ever exposed me to the Enneagram. And from the minute he did, I knew intuitively that I had my hands on a way of seeing the world, seeing myself, seeing community that I'd never seen before. And in fact, I have to be careful about how I talk about it because more and more I sound like a cult member. So I have to, but yeah, I just can't say enough good things about this way of life and how it helps you stay conscious of your light and your dark, and really helps you move through the world in a way that is much more effective, much more freeing, much less conflicted. So.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so I'd like to just, now that we've put ourselves in the room, I'd like to just bring in some of the energy, invoke some of the energy of what I feel is the highest expression or energetic of the type 4. So the type 4 is, and for the room, and again, I apologize that I'm speaking to you this way. The type 4 is it lives inside of all of us. So it is our direct connect, our human connection to the divine, to the deepest mystery, to I just want to say absolute beauty, to the to our true original nature, our uniqueness in the almost in the way someone once said, like each of our souls is like a unique snowflake. The four that's in us knows inherently this absolute precious uniqueness, this priceless uniqueness. And then as a little being, as a little child, you know, the 4 child starts to move through the world, and then something happens, and they're left with this experience of not being seen, maybe feeling abandoned, and a certain defense mechanism comes in and begins to veil this knowing. And so then this little being is then on this trajectory to, how do I get back to that? How do I reclaim this most creative, unique gift that I know I am, and may go about many different ways of manifesting that, and might begin seeing it in other people. And hence the point of suffering, and for new people in the room, Enneagram language often uses the term passion for suffering. So passion isn't what am I passionate about? Passion is actually suffering. And so the interface of suffering for type 4 it is envy. And it's as if everything that is good the goodness is outside of me. There's something that happens inside of the 4 that they identify with almost being something defective. It becomes easier to identify with suffering than this goodness, and they end up on this path to reclaim this uniqueness. Each of the subtypes we've talked about, there's social, there's sexual, which has nothing to do with sex. The term sexual has to do with an intensity of energy, an attractive energy, to get one's needs met through sometimes the other, an intensity in the energy. Self-preservation has, as expressed through the 4, can be called sometimes long suffering. It's that particular type of 4 tends to bury and move away from suffering, and can even look sunny. So it's not always so apparent the way the 4 can look in the world. And then Stephen before was speaking a little bit to how the social 4 can look. They can be the most viscerally sensitive feeling, and can feel the most victimized in life, maybe wears their suffering on their sleeve a little bit more. The sexual 4 tends to their intensity can flare up in anger as they move. They want to move the energy out of them. So with having just do a little bit of a brush stroke about all of this, I would love to know and hear from whoever wants to speak up first, if you can speak to how does this if you inherently are this beautiful original creation, what do you notice about how envy works that keeps you from realizing this in yourself? So whatever you'd like to speak, the floor is open. I would love for you to speak about any observations that you have. And again, please remind us of your subtype as you answer the question, because that will help how things land in the room. So who would like to go first?
I'd love to.
Okay, please, Nancy.
Okay, I am a one-on-one or sexual 4, and envy is not something I consciously experienced. But when I began reading the work on the Enneagram, one of the things that is identified is that envy is transformed into competition for the one-on-one 4, and that's very true. And sometimes it's competition with others. Very often it will be. I may idealize someone and think, oh, I want to be like them. And in that sense, it's almost the opposite of envy, but it is very much comparison. I may also feel a sort of, I don't know what happened. Am I there?
I'm back.
Okay, a competition within myself. That can often be an issue.
What are you competing for? What is it that you're going for?
Well, I think you described us well at the beginning when you said even in the most holy place, we are looking for true beauty and true value in this very esteemed way. I think we are often comparing ourselves, at least my type, to those kinds of impossible standards very often. So really, it's the most virtue, the most noble. I know that 4s of my type are often perfectionists and have trouble in writing and creating things, feeling, that's adequate, that's enough. Our standards are excessive, and we often will, in the self-competitive way, we won't let go because we want to keep making it better, or because we have this, Da Vinci style standard.
And just to add even more spice to this, how then does how does intensity then play in to this dynamic?
Well, actually, intensity almost never isn't there. We are just by style, and internally things are passionately important. We love hard, we work hard, we want a lot, we have very high standards. And so what we want with relationship is a sort of witnessing of all that really is important to us. So we are very intense in relationship. We want this real one-on-one connection. Please understand me. And if you don't, I really don't want to be your friend. And I will try very hard to understand you. And we will do the 4-hour conversations when we're getting, late at night as we're getting to know people. And it's exhausting to other people, but to us, it's just wonderful food.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to join in on that?
Can I add something? I resonate with a lot of that, Nancy. The envy, to me, it like, again, I mean, I don't really feel that so directly as much as comparison, like this constant comparison. It is not even conscious, really. I mean, it is conscious because now it is, thank God, but there's a quality to it, because when I'm doing it, I'm always assuming, which is completely stupid, I get that, but I'm always assuming that the people I'm comparing myself to, or the people that I'm just considering, always, like, they have more, they are more, they're better, they're whatever it is, they have it together and I don't. And then I'm always surprised to find out that I'm wrong. And I never learn. Like, it's very it's very entrenched. And I even say to myself, Joe, you know that what you think isn't true. Mm-hmm. But I still think it. So that's my 2 cents on that one.
Well, I mean, frankly, that's huge, right? And the fact that you can, the lightness in your being as you're sharing that, you know, shows that that you have some distance between this mechanism in you and what at one point in your life you didn't even know, right? That was an assumption you were going around with and always measuring up short, I would imagine. Is that true?
Yes. I mean, once in a while, you know, I picked the right people so I would measure up higher, but I mean, that's very rare.
So while we're on this, there's like this strange kind of inferiority, superiority.
It's very dual.
Very
dualistic in me.
Can you give an example? Can you speak to this? Because it's not, you know, and the beautiful thing, some of this is that this is where we see this is part of the 4 mechanism, right? But if you can speak to it, give an example, it would be really, really valuable.
Well, let's say, for example, in my work, I work, you know, with my peers. I work, you know, I have contact with a lot of people who have a lot of, you know, very interesting history, background, skills. I mean, and it's very deep and nuanced and interesting, and I can sit in that soup for days. But what I end up doing is assessing everyone based on what I think their skills are and what their depth is and how much work they've done and, you know, how connected, you know, all that shit, right? So I'm assessing them and then ranking, you know, if I'm better or worse. Yeah. And so it's all about that. Are they superior or are they inferior, and where am I in the pecking order? And so, yeah, that's a very good example.
Thank you. Thank you. Christy.
Of that, with going with that sexual idea of the constant comparing, is that no matter what, whether you are feeling superior or inferior, that game that you're playing in your head is all about control. And I think that that's something that gets lost when talking about the 4s, because we talk so much about the suffering of the 4, but the motivation of the suffering is to control. And I think that that's just that's a thing that gets lost when we're talking. You know, Joe is doing that to control her environment in that moment, and that's just what we do as 4s, as we play. I mean, I'm sitting here right now as a former teacher and presenter, feeling superior and feeling like I can tell Jerice how she could move the computer and, you know, make everything. So, like, I'm sitting over here thinking, well, I could make it better so everyone feels included. And then the inferiority part of me is, you know, I have a lot of things to say, I think, about the 4, but I'm always worried I don't know how to articulate. So to avoid my inferiority, I am controlling my environment by knowing that I can do it better.
Mm.
And then I'm taking control because, and the self-pres for is the internal sufferer and masochist, I can endure this. You know, so I'm taking also control of the situation by knowing that it could be done better, but not saying anything. And that was a lot of honesty there.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And there's a way, if I remember when you know, learning about the self-preservation for that, you'll mask that, right? You will mask that there's any kind of controlling going on, any kind of suffering going on. We won't be able to see a trace of it on your face, right?
Right. And I learned this weekend with our common friend Uranio that I mask that by being very smiley.
Uh-huh.
So in my head, I might be thinking, you're such an asshole. But I'm doing it behind a very friendly smile.
Mm. And so when do you deal with the pain? When do you deal with the suffering?
I think a self-pres has to be invited. And so I know what I'm learning about myself in just this past weekend is that I will hang on to my stuff, and I will either, just like Joe was saying, assess the room, read everybody in the room, and make some assumptions and judgments about everyone in the room. And I keep very quiet because I don't want anyone judging or assessing me. So I keep quiet and smile. And it's almost like I'm daring somebody in the room to be brave enough to come up to my stone wall and ask the right questions. And if they are brave enough to approach me or take the dare from me, then I might share my suffering.
Thank you. Remember, I am a counterphobic 6, so you may have just dared me. Moving
well,
on.
And when we had our one-on-one, I let you see me.
You totally did. You totally did. And now you're in a recorded room full of people. So, you know, but I'm gonna show this part of you. You are in the center of the room. So you may not be seeing everyone, but let me tell you, there's a monitor in here that you're front row. So I don't even know that you could pull off this monitor any better, but you know, we'll see about that. All right. Thank you. Thank you for all of that. Stephen.
So I'm still real focused on the way you originally asked the question, which was something like, force, if you're the ones whose gift to the world is this intrinsic knowledge of origin, snowflake uniqueness, right? Okay. So what's the envy thing about? Well, the minute you asked, I wanted to say that when the 4 becomes a sentient little boy or girl, I believe it really happens early. We are really separated from that intrinsic gift, profoundly separated from it. It's like we don't remember it. And most 4s have to get well into adulthood and learn about the Enneagram before it occurs to them that they have separated themselves from essence. And until we notice that, what I notice about us, the social force envy, is so embarrassing to say out loud, but I'm going to try. That you can neither compliment me or intensely critique me. I'm not saying you can't say, Stephen, you lost your keys over here. I'm just saying that if you are mad at me and say, this is how you suck, and this is how you did it wrong, right? All I'm really going to do with that is confirm for myself that you were one of the people that was smart enough to figure out that I am uniquely defective. You've got to remember that unconscious, kind of average to low functioning 4s are going to be unique any way they can. And the one place they are certain they can be unique is to think of themselves as uniquely defective.
Right.
Now, if you compliment me,
What do you present?
to this day, if you shower me with an authentic appreciation of something about me that's beautiful, I still hear a voice come up inside of me that goes something like, oh my God, I have fooled you. And now you're really reaching for something beautiful in me. And we both know that the minute you discover this thing about me that is not beautiful, that is dark, or that is sinful, if you will, we both know that you're going to abandon me. And so in a weird kind of way, until a 4 becomes conscious and reaches for healthier 4, I know social 4s are, when I'm public speaking, some part of me is out in the crowd, so alert to a cough, a shift in a seat, who's looking in their purse, who am I boring, who might be mad at me for what I just said. I should look out when this is over because I'm probably going to get some flack for that. Stephen, thank you so much for coming, and it was such a good thing you did. And here's this voice inside of me that says, oh my goodness, I might have fooled you. I might have tricked you into not noticing that there's also these dark, unlovely things about me, and now what will happen if you find out? So that's, now I just want to say one more thing. What's weird about social force is one of the ways I know I'm attached to holy origin and uniqueness is I am absolutely bent to notice that in you.
Right.
I with rare exception, 9 out of the first 10 things I want to do with you is shine a light on what is unique and beautiful and true about you, right? I got no problem with that at all, because part of what I'm doing is keeping the question away from myself.
Love that. Outstanding, outstanding, outstanding. That is the perfect segue to, you know, in the Enneagram, oftentimes you hear that the type 9 is the empath. Well, you know what? I actually think personally that type 4 is the ultimate empath, because exactly what you were just speaking to. I feel like that inside of your template of your mechanism, how you work inside, is almost like an alchemist's template, where the absolute most horrific tragedy as well as the greatest joy can meet and either come back to this remembrance we're talking about, or you can see this in your clients and find a way to guide them back to the gold. And I think it is absolutely no coincidence that every single one of you are therapists, because I think it is the greatest gift and capacity that you come with. So how do you bridge? How did each of you begin to bridge this disparity, this paradox that lives inside of you, that you can know the greatest pain and at the same time have access to the greatest joy? Anybody can speak.
Got a couple of microphones turned off, Therese.
You're speaking, we hear you.
Oh, okay. I'll go first with that one then, I guess. I turned 60 last week, and I've made a little bit of progress because I noticed today there are a couple of things I can own about for and myself that I think are important and powerful and good. And so you can laugh at the way I'm going to say it, but here goes. If you ever have to go to hell, metaphorically, get a 4 friend. Because we have flashlights and cereal bars and a map. We've been there many times before. We've got the place memorized. We're not afraid to go there. We are strangely invigorated and comforted by going there. And more than the other 9 types, at least at first. I mean, anybody can get here that wants to go here with us, but 4s are the ones who intrinsically know. The Jews said it this way in the book of Isaiah: the people in darkness have seen a great light. And 4s absolutely get that, even 4s that don't have a religious bone in their body. 4s absolutely get that that's a literal text, that the light lives in the darkness, and that the only human being that's ever going to see the light is a human being that wants to go in the darkness. And we will help you go there and tell you over and over again that as hard as this is, as much as it hurts, there are treasures in hell. And the ultimate treasure in hell is your authentic self. And we're good at that. We're good at transforming suffering into meaning and even love and beauty in some cases.
That's great. I'd love to hear from someone else on that. And then I'd like to circle back and hear if any of you have gone into the territory of the complete opposite of that. Have you taken this intensity into the light? But we can go there next.
I know for me that dark place is actually a time and a place where I regenerate my batteries, where I charge my batteries. And to the outside world, it looks like I'm depressed and suicidal, and I must be cheered up, and my whole life is going to fall apart unless they pull me out of this cave. And so I think if everyone who is not a 4 could just appreciate that a 4 is just generating their batteries when they're in that cave, and that is where they get their source of energy from, then it's not such a bad thing. And it's fruitless to spend your time being upset with a 4 in the cave, trying to get them out of the cave.
So we can have more understanding, right? For a moment, if we were to, figuratively speaking, watch you in there, why is this so invigorating? What are you meeting in yourself that is so precious and necessary for you to be there?
I would say that suffering is the one feeling that we trust to be authentic. Now, even as I say that, I know that that's bullshit, that that's not rational. But I'm saying, again, an unconscious kind of average to low functioning 4, really the one go-to experience we have that we know is real. And so it invigorates us because I'm back to real. I know suffering's real. Now, that takes work. I don't want to scare you.
Let me ask you a question. You say you know it's real, but I'm going to challenge you on that. I'm going to say that there's something that the suffering brings you in touch with that you're going after. You're going after something real.
You're right. As I said, an average to low functioning 4 absolutely believes it's real. It's not.
I'm talking about you.
Okay.
You. So let's keep this personal. When you're in there,
you do what you want with this. I think God's in there. I'm after source. I'm after source.
Okay. Thank you. Joe?
I would say, I had to put the light on. I would say I'm after truth and transformation.
In yourself.
And I don't mean transformation necessarily on some big scale. It could be quite small. But that's what I'm after. I mean, understanding something about myself. Yeah, like something that's messed up about myself that I just need to sort of sit in for a good long time and get it. You know, I mean, it could be anything. It's everything. You know, there's no, that's what I do.
So I'm curious, when you're in there and you're exploring something that you think is messed up about yourself, and maybe you feel certain it's messed up, does an alchemy happen when you're in there ultimately? What does it ever turn into? Where does the transformation happen?
I think around my responsibility.
Say more, please.
My when I can see and feel where my responsibility is in something, so that it's not being done to me. Like, I'm not a victim, you know, I'm not at the mercy of. When I can feel my own sense of self and groundedness and responsibility, then I have something that feels true.
Mm.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else have any more? Nancy, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I think, and I would be interested in Joe's reaction. I think that as a one-on-one four, there is a particular value in suffering, not the sort of sick self-pitying and all that sort of stuff. There is a courage to go through that I think the sexual has in particular. I think our clients comment on that. And so I think there is a sort of sense of almost being a crucible. This will manifest in true change, in true insight, in true value. And I do think we certainly can get into less healthy states, but I think we can use suffering in a very noble way. I'm clear that if there is a tinge of self-pity, if there is some self-delusion or whatever, it's an entirely different process. I don't know what's in the beaker. I know what's in there if it's really genuine. And I always expect, and I think it is always, I always expect some value to come forth.
So would it be fair to say, or I'm curious, that when you're doing your greatest work with a client, that it just seems to me that somehow a part of you knows that that person too, what their divinity is, that they're also, even though very different than you, their own original, unique creation.
Absolutely.
So while you're in the possible bowels of hell with them, if you speak, can you speak a little bit to it's almost like magic. How do you guide them out,
Well, I think there is the example. I mean, as you're suggesting, there's the knowing, and just as a parent and a coach and others know in advance for people, we are in a place of knowing what often the client can't see, and it's for them to move toward it. And I believe that's, for me, a very effective way to describe it.
Would you say that that there may be this is just coming to me, part of the self-healing, part of the self-remembrance, and as you're guiding others, you're also reinforcing your own original true nature as this process is happening?
Absolutely. I think we have to all be careful that we're not imposing what we've been through. But I think when it's legitimately the other person's experience and it's only the reward that we have seen, then absolutely it will remind us of the blessings we've received in that process prior to that.
Thank you. Anybody have anything else to add here?
So I'm gonna offer a whole different approach to what's going on in that dark place.
Okay.
For me, that's not where the transformation happens.
Okay.
For me, that's where the energy for the transformation happens. And you asked, what's there? What's going on down there? I think for me, it's a place where all of those things that you are not an interjection of the four. That is it's a whole section in B's book, but it really didn't connect with me until San Francisco, and then again this past weekend when I was with them. But it's our biggest defense mechanism, and we're constantly doing it, even when we think we're not doing it, and we say we are not doing it.
Can you, just for the room, just speak a little bit to what introjection is and how it works in the four, please?
Yeah, so introjection is the opposite of projection. We always talk about how people are projecting their shit on you, or, like, don't take it personally, that's just a projection. Fours do the opposite. They take in, Uranio would say they steal other people's stuff. So instead of being angry about something and making that about you, I will take your anger and steal it so that I can be angry as well and internalize it, and take it on myself. And it's the defense mechanism of the four to avoid themselves, I believe. And so when I think about what I'm doing in that cave, I'm taking a break from everything. It feels like I'm taking a break from envy, from introjection, from being oversensitive. And it is just an empty space so that I have the energy to come out and be transformed in front of others. And that might be a self-pres thing, that the transformation must happen within a group, because you have to be nervous and motivated for change to happen.
Well, I think that what you're calling taking a break, I think that is very self-preservation for. That's where the four takes, or may even avoid feeling the suffering, right?
Yeah. Well, and fours suffer alone. And they take great pride in that.
Why?
And
why?
And they're long suffering.
Why do you take great pride in suffering?
I don't know that. I don't know why.
But I don't even think that's just self-preservation for.
Yeah, no. I mean, yeah, we wear suffering as a badge. I don't know. I'm learning different things after this week. I'm learning that it's not, as a self-pres 4, I am not suffering as much, which is why I like to steal it from others. But that idea of why do you take pride in suffering? I think I don't have the answer. I think that is the kind of question that you could ask any type for their description of it. And if we knew why, then we wouldn't have to be 4s.
Well, does it maybe, well, let me go here with you. Does it have something to do with that you're unique? It's about your uniqueness, and a way that you brand yourself as an individual?
I'm gonna go with the control. My suffering is a way of controlling what I suffer about. And so if I can, like with that introjection, if I can take it on myself and I am in control of my suffering, then you no longer can surprise me. You no longer can hurt me anymore because I'm controlling my suffering. And I guess it's an illusion. I'm sure it's an illusion, but if I feel like I'm controlling it, then I am under the illusion that I can do something about it.
Right. And yet, ironically, right, that when 4 goes to 1 on the line of transformation, when you do let yourself begin to be in action, that can loosen things up, right? That can actually begin to have you move out of the state of suffering and find yourself in some type of moving toward the ideal of 1, or some form of something that you might be creating that is valuable.
Yeah, I've lost something here. I'm not making a connection right at the moment. I'm not making a connection with my suffering to be able to better articulate it.
Okay. Would anyone else like to pick the baton up here? Oh, actually, before we move on, I'm curious about something with regard to self-preservation. So before and even now, I find that self-preservation processes a little differently than sexual, or what we're calling one-to-one, and social. That there's a little bit of a pause, that what your processing system is not so close to the surface, where a one-to-one or sexual 4 might be quicker to respond, and you might get more of a fiery answer immediately. And we can also notice how, Stephen responds. I intentionally, come back to you. I intentionally want to leave you with a little bit of time. It's an intuition I have with my self-preservation dominant friends. How is that for you? Do you appreciate when people give you space?
Well, yeah. I think space is private space is part of self-pres. I definitely need a place to retire to at the end. Been traveling a lot this past month, and finally being okay with saying I need my own bed and I need to be able to close a door. And I think that is major self-care for a self-pres, because I think the process is an internal process for the self-pres, whereas other types could talk it out and process it. The self-pres needs to be alone, and more than not in our society, if they are being alone and isolating in a group, they are judged and criticized for that.
Mm-hmm. How is that for you out in the world?
How is what?
This is real, what you're talking about. I know, I can only imagine, because we live in this immediate world, immediate responses from devices and this, that, and the other thing. How does that work with, how do you get your needs met around this, being out in the world?
Well, I can only speak personally and just say that, through learning the Enneagram and fully understanding what that is, You know, I used to feel bad about myself, that I couldn't function in a Friday night happy hour, or that I didn't want to always spend time in the group. And knowing the Enneagram now, and especially with the subtypes, fully understanding who I am, I can very much own and am comfortable saying, this is my space, and I protect it with the Almighty, and not everyone can come in. Only certain people can come in. So, you know, if I offer help, I'm not offering open-ended help. I've offered help for a specific thing. Whereas other people think like, oh, she's so friendly, you know, she just lets you stay at her house. Well, no, I let this one person stay at my house under this one circumstance on this one occasion. But now I can own that and actually say that I'm practicing self-care, not feel bad about saying, yeah, I would love to stay with everybody, but I'm going to need my own bedroom with the door to close. And then retiring to that bedroom, leaving the group and retiring to the bedroom without feeling bad about what they're going to say about me needing to walk away. I'm a much easier person to be around when I can have that outlet versus being forced to stay in a group that isn't working for me and I need a break from. I mean, other than going into the bathroom and staying in there for 45 minutes, how do I escape? So if I can't escape, you know, by the end of the night, you won't want to hang out with me.
Right. Yeah, thank you. That's abundantly clear and really, really, really helpful for everyone, because even though there's more to it than just being self-preservation there's an instinct that's in second position and third position, that's too complicated for this evening, but still, when one's dominant instinct really is where we interface with the world, and it's really, really important internally from an internal intimacy place, as well as how we are received by others. And what I heard, the most important thing I heard is it's also an interface around your self-love and self-care. So the better we know ourselves through these instincts and how to explain sometimes to others what we need, find, you know, that with the awareness that, oh, I lead with this instinct, and that means I need this, and that's okay. And it's self-loving for you to please don't misunderstand me. This is what I need. This isn't against you. I'm not being aloof. I'm not being removed. I'm not being yada yada. I'm loving myself. Give me an hour, give me a day, give me a week, I'll be back. Thank you. Would love to hear from, you know, anyone else around this. I feel like the conversation is turning toward self-love. And how does your dominant instinct work around you enjoying yourself?
I think I can say it in one quick answer, and that is, for the one-on-one in growth, there is not the need for the other person in order to enjoy self. It's the kind of private time, which is so natural for someone like Christy, but developing a sense where we really are comfortable in ourselves, and then it really does become kind of a love affair. But it's a very different thing than the child who is childiness who's chasing an audience for our thinking things out, our being recognized as having significant thoughts, etc.
Has your awareness with equanimity served in this kind of a deep satisfaction and fulfillment coming from you being alone with you and having it have this quality of a beautiful intimacy?
I'll answer quickly and then I'll then go off to other people. Yes, very much, because I think there is this love of aloneness and then this ability to connect and wanting to connect, but the opportunity to have self-connection, which one-on-ones often don't have for so much of their lives, becomes very precious. And so when we go to the other, it's not as laden. It's not as, okay, here's my whole soul and I will get me when you get me. So it's much lighter, and I think my experience is, for me clearly, and for many other one-on-ones, that our senses of humor about ourselves come rather late in life, that it's kind of middle age where we really get a kick out of what seems contradictory and yet what really can coexist in this equanimity in a very lovely way.
Stephen?
So, for several minutes here, I've been laughing to myself because this whole time my microphone's been turned off and everyone else's has been turned on. And I was like, I wonder if she did that deliberately because I've been talking too much. See, that's very four, like, right? And I know that's irrational, but you're like, oh, that's interesting. I noticed that. I've been excluded. That really goes on in four. But at 60, I can laugh about that when I notice it now. I mean, Nancy's right. You get to this place where you still have these voices and these impulses, and then you start laughing your ass off at yourself. Not in a way that is loathsome, but in a way that's really kind of liberating. Like, that's a really silly thing to think, you know? But that happened right now. I was sitting here and I looked up and I noticed that only my microphone was turned off. Anyway, to answer your question.
But that's a social, that would be a social four edge.
Yes, absolutely. I was just gonna talk about the social four. I've learned a lot tonight because as Christy was talking, I really saw for the first time how Christy and I have a lot in common. We're both fours, and then we don't, because that dominant self-present Christy and that dominant social in me is interesting. So back to your question, how do we get to self-love? For a social four, here's what I notice about my social dominant instinct. That my social dominant instinct is a real plus and minus thing for me. Because on the one hand, I gotta tell you folks, I'm a lot of fun at a party. Invite me. I will invent games. I have an ironic tilt to my viewpoints. I will notice absurdities. I will help you to laugh at yourself. I will laugh at me. I mean it. Invite me to your parties because I'm entertained, right? And I go home from a party like that and I have a good feeling. It was fun to do that. It was fun to make people feel light and happy. And so, okay, that's good. Now here's the dark side of that same thing. Christy was talking about this withdrawal into a room and shutting the door to be alone. I'm a little concerned that I can do that social thing to be alone. You gotta get the paradox of that I can walk into a room and banter and be quick and yet sometimes I'm still doing that, hoping against hope that no one will really ask me and want to know the answer, how are you, Steve? I look energetic, I look friendly, I look helpful, but even that can be a way to hide. I guess what I was learning tonight was that Christy goes into a room and shuts the door to be alone. I can get lost in a social persona and not even have to leave the room to be alone. Now, so back to what self-love is for me. I find self-love for me is that my repressed instinct, which is self-preservation, and you can laugh if you want, but having 4 years in a row had to call my tax man to file an extension on taxes for no other reason then I freaking didn't want to do them and didn't want to think about it because they're boring. And I don't care about money. I'd have a lot of money if I cared about money, but I'm not self-present. I don't care. And this year, for reasons I can't entirely explain, maybe I'm learning more about the Enneagram, I reached into my repressed self-pres, and they were done by the end of February. And I had them filed in the first week of March. And I really felt that as self-care and self-love. Self-care and self-love for me is breaking the cycle of always being in a state of laundry. I mean, I'm serious now. Wet clothes in the washing machine that are done, dry clothes in the dryer that are done, a pile of dry clothes on my bed that is yet to be folded and put away, and another pile of them waiting to get, like, when I decide on a Saturday morning to do my laundry until it's done, I feel a sense of self-love. When I do the dishes, I feel a sense of self-love. When I eat right, I notice self-love. But this has come very late to me because self-pres is repressed for me, and I have to be very deliberate about it. It does not come natural.
And if I could just say a side note to that, I know we're not getting into our stacking, but I think the reason that we are most similar in that we share 4, but most opposite in the way that we take care of things is because your dominant is my repressed and my dominant is your repressed. Like, it couldn't be more opposite.
Yes.
And I just had to say that because I knew I wouldn't see you for a while to revamp that. So sorry to the room.
Thanks for coming out of your bedroom and saying that, Christy. That meant a lot to me.
Joe, would you want to add anything to what has made a difference in your life around self-love? You know, what have you consciously been bringing in that's been making a difference? Or keeping out?
I think I want to echo something Stephen said about doing. Like, there's something about action that counterbalances the inaction of my sort of, navel gazing, that, and so when I'm able to act, it really helps. And I mean, I would echo exactly what you said, Stephen. Also, I think that, doing a lot of sort of emotional clearing, I've needed to do it because I had a lot to clear and still do, but, beginning to really clear that out just sort of empties the vessel a little bit, and it gives me more room. And like, just reminding myself that my energy is my pleasure, and my pleasure is joyful, and I deserve it, and and I can suffer and I can also have pleasure. So it's not easy. It's not easy for me there. It's a thing. It's a thing.
What helps you sustain pleasure? What helps you sustain intimacy? Anybody, for that matter. Really, truly, because if you're being met by constant love, that could be even construed as boring. I'm loved, really. I'm loved for just how I am, and maybe that doesn't feel so intense.
I'll jump right on that. In my meanderings through romance and love for a lot of years, you said it perfectly, Jerese. When things got too good, there was something about that was boring and not intense enough. Now, I'm not a fighter. I mean, I've had fights, but I don't want to pick a fight. But I want the intensity back of us talking about something that's serious and learning and growing. And Nancy said it earlier. This is how a 4 can just suck the life out of somebody that would like to date you or be in love with you or be married to you. I'm happy I said, I'm happy. I'm happy that today, I had a spiritual director that said to me, Stephen, you need to make peace with boring. That the way to fix that is not to make sure it's never boring. It's to be present through ordinary gestures of affection, ordinary end of day conversations, an ordinary dinner, an ordinary kiss goodnight. And I think I have learned to just be a little more peaceful with what I used to call boring. And to be totally honest, see, I'm a snobby four. In the old days, boring was beneath me. If you're going to bore me, I'm going to go find somebody that will be intense with
me. Stephen, do you think there's the possibility that you've associated self-preservation energy with boring?
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Absolutely. If I'm, especially if I'm alone at my house, if I'm just going to make myself dinner, why would I do that? Why would I just clean the kitchen because I think it's beautiful? My children laugh at me when my darling is not with me, and they say, "Are you ever going to tell her how you really live, Pop?" Because the truth of the matter is that when she's with me, I'm a really good housemate. I'm helpful. I pick up after myself. But when I'm alone for long stretches, it gets a little sloppy around here.
So let's have Christy respond to this. So Christy, is your life boring?
It doesn't feel very boring.
What's juicy about self-preservation energy?
Say that again. I didn't hear you.
Where's the juice in self-preservation energy? Your answer is going to support those of us out here who might have that repressed. What's to speak to the value of bringing this consciously online?
So much pressure. I'm not sure I know where the juice is in the self-preservation part of me.
Why do you like being you?
Well, I like being me because I'm fun. But I'm not sure that that's part of being a self-pres. I'm not sure my fun comes from being self.
That could be part of the self-pres four, the sunny four. We haven't heard anybody else on the panel saying that they're fun.
Right. Yeah.
Not yet, at least.
Right. And well, Stephen said it, but he also said he'll go home and give himself shit about it. The juice and self-pres. I'm just not sure I'm getting. I don't really have answers for you on this at all.
All right, it's a good. We can steep in the inquiry. It's this is really all of this really is pioneering territory, as we know, right? I mean, Uranio and B, we were part of their maiden voyage, right? There's a lot of this that is still we're bringing this forward. That's why we're doing these panels. So I'm curious about how to bring my social subtype forward. So it's okay, and if anything comes, just hop in. So I'm going to change the subject unless there's something else burning to say. Anything? Okay.
I would love to know if anyone sitting in the audience has relationship with four, and they need our help in, navigating how to live with the four or something.
Or if you just hate fours, if you could just say that and I'll introject it and hold it for you.
All right. So I'm happy to go there. And there's one thing that both of you in our pre-panel interviews said that maybe this can get addressed when we open the room. Two of you said to me, as long as I'm not vocalizing what I need, things go well, if not much better in my relationships.
I'm leaving.
So I would love to, you know, and this could be, I know this is a big one. Anybody want to touch this? What have you seen around this? A lot of rocking going on.
Yeah, just say it, Stephen. Just say it.
What's rocking? Are you muted? No.
Probably that I have a mixture. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yes,
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Okay. I think what I'm trying to do is comfort myself because the question makes me think of an angry feeling, makes me have an angry feeling and a very shy and exposed feeling all at the same time. And I just, well, I'll say it this way. It's a little anecdotal, but here goes. If you ask me, Stephen, how are you? It's amazing how often I will quickly answer a different question and you will think I've answered yours. How are you, Stephen? You might hear from me, life is good. And you'll nod and walk away. And that's good for me because what you've proved to me is that you didn't want to hear the answer. And apparently, you thought life is good is an answer to the question, how are you, Stephen? And see, this confirms for me something I think, and that is that a lot of people will inquire about me, but not have either the courage or the endurance or the willingness to hold space for the answer. So I'm 60 years old, and I tell myself I have 60 years of experience of that being true or mostly true. Now, I'm smart enough now to know that that can't always be true, that some people really want to know who I am. And my darling just smiles and tells me that she's learned to ask twice. And it's really a beautiful thing. How are you, Stephen? Life is good. 3, 2, 1. And this face will lean over and she'll go, so how are you, Steve? And it's this little game she plays with me that I really appreciate because she's trying to tell me I really meant the question and I really want to know. It is very hard for me to truly ask for what I need because it just hurts a lot if I do and somebody calls me needy or pushes that away. And then I just say to myself, you got to learn, Stephen, keep that to yourself. That's still something I'm really working through. I don't know if I'm very good at that yet.
What do you, and for those of us of other types and people that might be in relationship with you, how can we best respond?
Honest to goodness, I really like being asked good questions. I laughed with my colleagues and I said, I'm going to start a line of Enneagram t-shirts and the one for 4 is going to say, I'm waiting for the right question. Because if you ask me the right question, the fact that you could do that at all tells me that you might have both the acumen and the depth and the willingness to want to hear the answer. So if you ask me a lot of shallow fluff questions, I'm polite, but that will tell me I'm probably not going to initiate much of great import for you right now. Because I don't want to put it out there and not have somebody, well, as Nancy said, at least try to understand.
Mm-hmm. So aside from us asking a few times, is there anything else?
Yeah, don't believe me all the time.
No.
I can sound very confident, very articulate, and very convincing, but sometimes I'm doing that to throw you off the trail. And I really always respect and admire somebody who I'll give this great answer to, and I look up and they're still kind of staring at me like, come on. And, that probably wasn't entirely true. I actually respect that. I actually feel loved when somebody kind of calls me on that.
So is that the 4's way of testing or testing?
Absolutely. This is the gauntlet I will put you through. I'm sorry ahead of time. I don't know if I'll ever change. I've got this kind of thing. It's like a hazing that I'm going to put you through that will tell me that you might actually want to be there for the answer.
Thank you for your honesty. I would love to hear from another one of you on this. What are you testing us for when you test us?
For me, it's how much do you care? How much do you care? And how far will you go?
When do you know it's enough? Is it ever enough?
Generally not. I mean, I work with this a lot in myself, and I say, Joe, it's enough. Let it be enough. But I have to, you know, give myself a talking to.
So that's an awareness. That's an awareness.
Like, yeah, that one's not enough.
Well, and I think that's what's at the core of the four. She just said it right there. No, it's not enough, because of our firm belief that we are incapable or we are lacking. So if we so firmly hold on to that there is a lack in us, nobody could ever give us enough. But I think Stephen's shirt says it all for any subtype of four. You know, the shirt right there says labor of love. And I think for a four, love is very laborious.
Very.
Very.
Otherwise it's probably not real, right? It has to be kind of laborious.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
Yep.
I remember one of your lines, Joe, you know, I want you to meet me in the trenches.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, Christy, I'm going to take your lead and open to the room here. Do we have any questions in the room for our fours, our beautiful four panel? You want to turn on the light? Any questions?
We can.
I have a question.
Okay.
And I think I'm not sure what my subtype is yet, but because
Can you speak louder?
because you all seem to become, I'm not sure about the social subtype, but the other two, the self-preservation and the sexual, I didn't hear as much about the sexual, but you seem to become rejuvenated. Becoming rejuvenated is a solitary effort. Would you say that most fours tend to be introverts?
Do you have a question?
Would you
The question. The
Most
question
fours introverts.
are. It seems that most fours tend to rejuvenate by yourselves, but when you're alone is where you hit that place of reinvigoration, whether it's meeting suffering or what have you. So the question is, would you say that most fours tend to be introverts? Not necessarily.
No, I mean, I definitely don't, you know, I mean, I need time alone, but I rejuvenate both ways, definitely socially. I love being social, and I'm fun.
Yes. I want to jump on that and say, again, I don't know in the room how many of you are brand new to this or are deeply into it. One of the ways to group the 9 types is to notice that there are assertive types, dependent types, and withdrawn types. So I want to say to you that 4s, 9s, and 5s are the 3 that we call the withdrawn types. However, I notice that withdrawn types can be extroverted or introverted, but they're still withdrawn. I'm a very extroverted social 4, but you got to know me to see all the ways that my first move into anything psychically is literally pull back about 4 inches, asking the question that all the withdrawn types ask, what is that? And do I want to mess with it? What is that? And do I want to mess with it? The gift of the withdrawn type, I think, is that those 3 types have an uncanny way of letting life come to them, And because we allow for that, I think we see a lot of things that the more assertive types, 3s, 8s, 7s, that are always kind of planning and planning and planning, well, they get more done than we do, maybe, but sometimes their plans blind them to opportunity. So to answer your question, I think we're introverted and extroverted, but we are all withdrawn type. I hope that makes sense.
I learned about that with John today. Can
you speak up?
So for that, the withdrawn types, thinking about it in terms of how do we have power, and I get what I want by withdrawing. A 3 gets what they want by going towards it. But I think that idea of introvert versus extrovert is more about the subtypes.
Yeah.
You know, so self-pres 4 will be internal and alone, whereas a social 4 and even a sexual 4 will do it, you know, with somebody.
Right. I mean, so you move with gusto a lot. Joe?
What?
I said you move with gusto a lot.
Yeah, but I can relate to that withdrawn thing. You know,
Right.
I can relate to being a little stepped back, even though my energy is really big, and you know, internally I'm
right.
I don't know how to say.
You're by nature withdrawn, and yet when you are like even you know the strength of your voice, right? Even the way when you step in, it's got a punch to it, even though you're essentially a withdrawn type, right? You see the difference when Joe's speaking than when Christy's speaking. It's an energetic difference, but they're all withdrawn types. Anything else? Go ahead.
No,
Okay. Alex, having any resonance?
Yeah, I'm resonant.
Okay.
Popping up from you, the context of just, I think, the feeling is almost a feeling inside, something deep inside, and be in touch with that all the time. And that's what they want to gravitate towards. That's what the withdrawing is. But with that, there's a lot of like darkness. There's like all the stuff you don't want to like experience is down there. So it's like, I think the way the 4 prevents that from happening is getting into that story of the whole envy thing.
Right.
So we'll just need Jerice to repeat the questions.
The transmission was a little jumbled. He looked so sincere. It sounded interesting, but tell me what he said.
What I heard him say is there's a place where there's the place where the suffering exists inside of the 4, and yet there's a way that, if I've heard you correctly, that envy, or there's a way that that a 4 will distract themselves from actually feeling the suffering, right? And then there's, so we haven't even gone into this, but then there's the layer underneath the layer of suffering that you tend to identify with, which is that original separation from self, you know, that is taking what Alex is pointing to a whole deeper level. And I think that's the journey where the 4 really begins to wholly integrate and really reclaim your divine true nature. Were you somewhat pointing in that direction? So
the way to get through it is to relax that, the whole envy thing and the whole feeling of the whole mental story you build around your concept of yourself. Once that relaxes, then it's like a kind of like energetic transformation that happens, and that all you're left with is just the feeling of being in touch with who you really are in terms of what resonates with you, what you want to communicate. So that comes through you. That's at least my experience of it.
Well, yeah, and for each type, that is the road to transformation, is the relaxing of the passion. And so for the four use envy and introjection and reveling in other people's. A mistake that a lot of people make is that fours are very in touch with their feelings. I mean, that's why a lot of us are therapists, is because we are very in touch with other people's feelings, but not necessarily our own. And so and fours identify and are comfortable in some pain to avoid other pain. So I'm a grief therapist, and I'm really comfortable. But with my own grief, I don't express it through emotion. It stays inside of me and manifests physically. When my father died, I had some sort of mystery disease that no doctors could figure out, and I lost 30% of my hair, and I was just physically ill. But I didn't sit with anybody and just cry in their bosom. And so you're right, like that idea of we have to relax the envy, relax the introjection. And I would offer that that's for any type. If you look at the three, they need to relax the vanity and obsession with image.
Right. Thank you, Christy. That was spot on. That's perfect. Really, really good. Anyone else? Anything? Bring anything.
Cherise?
Yes.
Who's the man in black? What's his name?
The man in black is Alex.
Did you
Alex.
Did you say Alex?
Yes.
So this is like very personal, but here's my answer to the question. Even as you were talking, I was like, he's passing the test. I would have a beer with him. Like I was literally sitting here going, oh my God, somebody who gets that. I'd talk to you. I would share something. That literally happened as I was listening to you. I was just sitting here smiling and going, there's one.
Uh-huh. And would you call it the realness test, the authenticity test? How would you name the test?
It connotes real, but the most important thing is there's somebody who might understand. He's at least trying to understand. Fours will give you credit for trying to understand. But he actually might understand what it's like to be me, and he said it in a way that felt caring and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I literally have that experience just right now.
Just so you know, for me, I really identify with the three withdrawn types. So I can relate to all three of those really strongly.
You 9 or 5, you say?
What's that?
You're one of the withdrawn types?
Yeah, 4, 5, and 9.
He relates to all three of them.
Okay. All right.
And I think 1-to-1 first, and then maybe self-pres after.
Okay.
At least that's what my guess is.
Although you actually could be in this sunny 4 category.
I think so, because I don't like project. Like I think the 1-to-1 4, like they say, projects anger or like the competition thing, but I don't do that. I'm more, I think, more on the 5 side of the 1-to-1. It's kind of holding yourself back and then trying to connect with somebody else. So like I can relate to the whole 4 aspect of wanting to really get authentic with someone. And so I do that with the 5 too, but it's through the 1-to-1.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If one of you were to take one good question shot, over to Alex, he's been in this inquiry for a long time, and you guys are really astute. Why don't you give him one of your best litmus test 4 questions?
Nancy, you take this one. You're good at this.
I was wishing it would be one of you. Which would be one reaction. Alex, what do you want most of all in your internal moments, and what do you want out of relationship?
In my internal moments?
Uh-huh.
I just want to know myself. Be totally connected to myself.
You're a 4, my friend. You're a 4.
Yeah, so I mean that's the main thing. And then from there, it's just what I notice is with the 9 too is I want to connect with everybody else too, which makes it really hard because I can really connect with myself and then with everybody else. It's like, how do you do that? I mean, like, how do you successfully do that? You know? So I've had a hard time doing that. I usually get in a situation where I'm playing the 9 role, where I'm just getting along with everybody else and just flowing with whatever everybody else is doing. But I get lost in the process, and it's really frustrating. So I'm trying to figure out how to do that. It's really hard, but the thing that I'm noticing is just grounding myself is the way that I resolve this, because it seems that those 3 withdrawn types go into the head and heart automatically. And the only way to actually connect and make movement and kind of manifest who you really are is to like be in your body and move with what's really resonating with you.
And I don't think the 9s would express what he just said. I don't think the 9s would talk about that frustration. Did you all resonate a little bit with that frustration he was speaking about? They're just nodding their heads. Yeah.
Cool. All right, 4.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But for the one-to-one aspect, like you're saying with the relationships, I mean, it's the same thing. I just want to connect with someone else as strongly as I can. There's no barriers, and everything's flowing between the 2 people. Whatever's possible in that scenario with the 2 people is, it's free flowing basically. That's what I want, but it's hard to get.
And what do you want from that other person? What do you want from that other person that you so desperately want to connect with? What are you hoping for when you're connecting?
Whoever they really are, whatever's really resonating with them, I want that to be open and vulnerable and communicated. And I want to do the same thing. So it's different. What I notice when I connect with people is people, it just doesn't connect as well. Like you're kind of just on different wavelengths. But certain people, like the connection happens really strongly. Or like, there's some aspect somewhere where you connect on a mental level or an emotional level or like, like a gut level or something. There's something there and it happens. But I'm just noticing that it's different through, I guess you could say the 9 part, is that when I'm trying to orient with other people, everybody's in a different spot with that. So I kind of have to meet them where they're at and try to bring myself as close as I can to the energies that are present, basically.
I mean, something that's just coming to me to share is a lot of what I think in the past, and now I'm going to be speaking a little bit, this is a little more advanced Enneagram language, so people please forgive me, but there's things that you're attributing to point 9 might actually have something to do with your repressed social subtype. And I wonder if we lean in, not right now, but another time, if Alex's second in position is 1-to-1, right? So once he's there, he's having to connect. And then he was saying how if something happens and it gets lost, he gets lost in the mix socially. So it's almost like there's a capacity to that which would be a strength in the social subtype. He doesn't have access to that energy.
Makes a lot of sense.
So it's worth exploring. We were all just in a deep inquiry around the impact of our first, second, and third position subtype. It's new territory. Christy, your second is it sexual?
Yeah.
I think yeah. And and there's the more you guys are hanging out with each other, the more I'm feeling more of an energetic resonance between the two of you.
Well, and just everything that Alex said about just when he's talking about his confusion about 4 and 9, you're very contemplative, and 4s don't sit around and 9s don't sit around and contemplate. 4s do. 4s are ever seeking understanding for themselves and understanding of others.
That's funny because that's the actual word they use for the tri-type thing. They call that one the contemplative, which is interesting. Well, yeah, I'm interested to see. I've been like thinking about a lot for those 3. It's like am I one of these and one of the subtypes, or is it like actually is the tri-type thing real, or is it more like nuanced than that? It's actually just one type. And I don't, I'm not sure. So I'm just trying to get as much information as I can to understand myself and know what's really going on. But
and that sounds like a 5-wing, and you don't get to a 5-wing at 9.
I know from that, yeah, but yeah.
Exactly.
The other piece that I think is very for identifying is if you're in an argument or a disagreement with someone and you feel that they make effort to grasp your position, can you walk away comfortable even though there's some anger left because they've made the effort to understand?
There's anger left where?
Okay, what I'm asking is if you've had a disagreement with something, even where there's some anger involved, if someone will make effort to understand your position, is your excitement or anxiety or bothersome aspects, does that get diminished simply because they tried to get your position? Don't have to agree, but just understand where you're coming from.
I think so, but I usually don't get really frustrated.
Okay.
I usually try to keep the peace as much as possible. So get to a closer spot with me, that's great. I feel I'm seen and known more, which is great,
Well, we could put it the opposite.
We could put the situation. If somebody's getting frustrated, if I'm getting frustrated on a lower level, I didn't really express it or something. I just have to depend on the situation. I can't really say.
So if you reverse it and we're not talking about frustration, do you especially appreciate when someone tries to understand where you're coming from?
Yeah, I get really excited.
Because I think that is manna to the 4.
I get more passionate when somebody is resonating with me. I feel like I'm more able to step out and I'm more comfortable. So yeah.
Thank you. Jennifer, go ahead, Jennifer.
I think I'm a 4, but the envy thing really throws me because I don't know nearly as much about this as Alex does. But I wanted to ask a question you asked Alex. I have a totally different answer for. You asked something about what do you expect from other people, or what do you want to connect with someone else? And my answer is that I'm so in my own mind so much. I'm so kind of self-contained that what I want from people is they bring me out into the world. They are my they bring me out of myself.
Would you guys switch positions?
Yeah.
Please.
I'm not going to be nearly as good as Alex. I'm so verbal about this. And I don't know if there's a way to be bad. So you're okay. Well, right. I'm not as articulate because I haven't thought about it nearly. But anyway, does that resonate in any way?
Anybody?
Yeah, I wasn't sure exact. What I thought you had said was what you want most from another person is for them to bring out the real you.
No.
No. What did?
No, I think the real me resides within me. But, it can get very lonely being inside yourself all the time. So I depend on what I want from somebody else is to give me an exit or an entrance into the real world or into the world of, and outside of myself. Take me outside of myself.
So I have a question. Do any of you ever get lonely with all that goes on inside of your active emotional feeling world? I didn't hear lonely come out of anybody's mouth tonight.
Lonely is my badge.
Lonely is your badge.
1-4's opinion about that. I think 4s were born lonely. I think it's part of our identity. In a weird kind of way, it's a comforting friend. We assume that very few people want to understand us. So I don't hear a lot of 4s grappling with lonely. I hear them grappling with more the word alienation. The sense that they are alien to some part of the rest of the world. Ma'am, what is your name? I feel foolish calling you.
Jennifer.
Jennifer. Look, I don't know. I'm just meeting you, but part of what you're saying feels a little more 5-ish than 4 to me. I don't know if the other 4s are sensing any of that. I don't need to be pulled out of myself and introduced to the world. I need to be understood, so I'm willing to come out into the world. But 5s, in my experience, are a little bit more like, I don't know if I know how to be in a relationship. I'm in here. I see other people in relationships. I'd like to be in one, but I might need some coaxing. I might need somebody to pull me out and really push me to connect. That was just a guess that I had. What do y'all think?
That's interesting. I thought I was a 7. I thought I was a 1, and then I thought I was a 4. Now I have to investigate 5s. The search goes on.
Yeah.
What are you guys reading or doing to learn your types?
I took a 6-week course about 2 years ago where we just met once a week. So I had 6 sessions, and that was my introduction. I've done just a tad of reading since then. I haven't really done much studying.
Yep.
So
You have this book?
no, I don't.
What book are you showing her? Yes. Do you have the smaller book?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's good.
Yeah.
Like this is what I would do I would look through this to find yourself.
Yeah.
And then go to the big B book and really find your subtype and who you are. And take a few free tests online and just see where you keep landing and see what resonates with you the most, maybe.
Some tests I landed all over the place.
Which tells people who study the Enneagram that you're a 6 or a 9.
That's right. Just saying.
So there's more for you.
Just saying. So anyway, I know we're over time, and you all have been really, really generous. So any last minute anythings, or I think it's time for us to thank our panelists for their generosity and let them eat and go to sleep or whatever they're going to do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
All right. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Very, very much for your generosity.
You're welcome.
Good night.
It's been very, very
All
clarifying.
right, well, night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.